Hi, in the last session, we talked about variables in VHDL and we learned how variables are different from signals in VHDL and how these assignments actually works in VHDL. Now let's talk about VHDL functions. So let's start. Functions and procedures in VHDL are essential to reduce your code size, especially when you need to rewrite some section of your code many times for the reusable designs. So let's explore how it works. In VHDL, procedures and functions are similar to the functions and methods in the software programming languages like C or C++. They help to structure your code by encapsulating the repetitive operations. So, in short, we create the functions and procedures to handle the repetitive operations so that our code looks minimal and they becomes easy to maintain. And this method is more efficient too. Once you write your procedures and functions, then you can use them anywhere in your code and as many times as you need it. And it will execute that particular operations without copying your whole code. One important keynote is that you cannot implement registers within a procedures or function. And this restriction ensures that the procedures and functions only perform the combinational logic. Means only combinational logic is permitted within the procedures and functions in VHDL. You can write your functions and procedures in the architecture declaration section, processes and packages. So you are flexible to organize your code efficiently and reuse your logic across the different parts of your design. So you can assume that functions are the subprograms in VHDL and they are useful when there is a need of a repetitive section of the code. A function can accept one or more input variables, but you cannot modify these input values inside your function. Means once that function is called at any point of time, then its input remains same for that execution. And these inputs will be treated like a constant for that run instance. A function always returns an output value and it cannot return a void or any unspecified value. The return value must be assigned to a specific variable or signals in your calling code. Lastly, functions cannot include the wait statement. Here is the basic syntax for a function in VHDL. We begin with the function keyword followed by the function name. Now, inside the bracket, we list all the input parameters along with their data types. Then we specify the return type using the return keyword. So this looks like function, function name, then input parameters in the bracket, return, return type is, then declare the constants and variables in this section. Then begin. Now write the functional code in this section here and then return something and semicolon. So you can see that before the begin keyword, you can declare your variables and constant, which are needed for this function. These declarations can be used for internal calculation within your function. Variables can be used to accumulate the results to store the intermediate values. You can use them for internal calculations within your function. So you can return any data. Note that variables are reinitialized every time the function is called. So they cannot be used as a storage element. Means once the output is returned, then there is nothing stored in that function. After the begin keyword, we write the VHDL code for our VHDL function. And before reaching to the AND statement, we must return some output values. Let's understand this with one simple example. In this example, we are writing a function that adds 1 to any integer number which is given as an input. For example, if we pass the value of 100 to this function, then it will return 101. Simple. So we create a function called increment and it adds 1 to any integer number that is passed to it. So here is the VHDL code for our incremental function. Function increment input num colon integer return integer is variable temp colon integer semicolon. Begin temp is input num plus 1 return temp, and we start by using the function keyword to declare the function. We name this function increment and specified the input parameter. So in our case, it is input num, and this is an integer. Next, we specify the return type as integer, since this function will return as an integer value. Then we declared a variable called temp to store this intermediate results for our calculation. Now, after the begin keyword, we assign temp the value of input num plus 1. Finally, we return this temp as the output and then end our function with the AND keyword. Now, at the bottom section of this code is the example that how to use this function in our VHDL code. So I have written dout gets the value of increment 4 semicolon. Means we are passing integer number 4 to this function, and this function will give you output 5. Okay, so that's it for today. This was a quite short video. I hope you get some overview of VHDL functions. In the next session, we will cover VHDL procedures. So stay tuned for the updates. If you did not subscribe till now, then please do subscribe to our community for regular updates. If this video is informative, then please like this video, comment on video, and don't forget to share. Thank you for watching.